meeting is now called to order. This is Finance and Economic Development Committee meeting for December 8th, 2025. I am co-chair, Councilmember at Large, Letitia Bracy, and at this time, I will call a roll for those members of the committee first. Councilwoman Michelle Harley is absent with leave. Councilwoman Shanae Darby.
Present.
Councilman Alexander Hackett.
Here.
Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver.
Present.
Councilman Spadola.
Present.
President Congo. And I'll acknowledge any council members that are here. Councilman Owens.
Present.
Are there any council members online? Councilwoman Willauer.
Yes, I do. I have it. Sorry.
As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions and seconding. And now we will proceed with the agenda. First ordinance is an ordinance to amend Chapter 40 of the City Code regarding parental leave and combined leave, and that is being sponsored by me. And is there a member of the administration that would like to speak towards that?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Is this on? Okay. Good evening. My name is Taylor West. I am the acting director of the Department of Human Resources, and I am here on behalf of the administration regarding agenda item number 1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 40 of the City Code regarding parental leave and combined leave. I do have a brief presentation prepared for tonight. If you could pull it up, please. Right. And so the purpose of today's, the presentation, we'll go in a brief overview over, one, what is required by state law, as well as the city's proposed plan for paid and family and medical leave, and then as well as summarizing the legislative changes that are up for discussion tonight. You can go to the next slide. And so as the legislation suggests, in May of 2022, Governor Carney signed into law the Healthy Delaware Families Act. And the goal of that act was to provide income replacement while employees throughout the state of Delaware are out on covered leave during some of the most significant, both challenging and celebratory times of their lives. And so in compliance with this law, all employers with 10 or more employees, which includes the city of Wilmington, beginning on January 1st, have to offer paid leave to employees who have been employed for at least 1 year and have worked at least 1,250 hours from the date the leave is to begin. And so here on the screen, you see the types of leave that are required by the state law. Parental leave, which is for the birth, adoption, or foster of a child. The law requires that employers provide 12 weeks every year. Employee medical, which that leave covers serious health conditions for the employees themselves. The law requires that we provide 6 weeks every 2 years or 24 months, as well as caregiver leave. And so that is if an employee has to be out to deal with a serious health condition of their family member, which that is defined under the federal law as well as state law. They are eligible to receive up to 6 weeks of paid leave every 2 years, and then military exigency leave. And so there's a list of things that qualify for that, but it's really to assist to help with anything that arises relating to foreign deployment. So whether the employee's spouse, parent, or child, the things that might arise when someone is deployed overseas, as well as covered leave for service members with serious injuries if the employee is either the spouse, parent, or child of that member. And so these are the types of leave that are required by state law. No employee is eligible to receive more than 12 weeks total. Next slide, please. And so a little more about the state plan, or what we refer to as a state plan, which is essentially the minimum required by the law. The law says that employees can receive 80% of their weekly wages, but it caps it at $900 a week. This, under the state law, it really functions as an insurance plan. And so what the law allows is for employers to finance the plan or the program through contributions to a state fund. That state fund is managed by the Department of Labor. It collects all the employer contributions who participate in that state plan at a rate of 0.8% of each employee's weekly salary. That insurance plan also allows employers to split that contribution that is used to fund the insurance program, as the state refers to it. And so we can, as an employer, share 50% of that contribution cost, so up to 0.4% of an employee's weekly wage. And so these are essentially the minimum requirements and the way that the state's plan is designed to work. Next slide, please. And so the state plan the law allows for employers to opt out of the state's plan and create their own private plan. And so when this law was enacted, we created a working group to determine what the city would do. And we determined that these would be our guiding principles for determining what the plan would be here at the city of Wilmington. The fiscal impact, that's both the fiscal impact to employees as well as to the city, the operational needs of the department, the ability to recruit and retain talent, and also the ability to negotiate. As you all are aware, we have a unionized workforce. About 75% of our employees belong to a union, and so we are required to negotiate any terms and conditions of any policy, code change, that affects the terms and conditions of their employment. And so the ability to negotiate is something that we had to consider when determining what our plan would be. I wanted to make a note on the fiscal impact here. You all, in the previous slide, saw that the paid leave that's required under the state law caps it at $900 a week. And so when we were looking at the fiscal impact that could potentially be endured by city employees, that meant, if we were to adopt the state's plan as it's written, that 80% of our workforce would be negatively impacted if we accepted that $900 maximum. That's because 80% of our workforce makes over essentially $900 a week, which would be the equivalent salary of $46,800 a year. And so again, this was not just about what makes what is fiscal prudent for the city, but also minimizing the fiscal impact to the employees as well. Next slide, please. And so in that work, we ultimately decided to do a private plan, which means we are not choosing the state's plan that caps the weekly benefit at $900 a week and provides those 12 weeks of parental and the 6 weeks of the other types of leave. We decided to offer greater benefits than what is required by the state's plan. And that was primarily to help us, one, to be able to support our employees during that time, but then also to mitigate some of that impact, that financial impact that I spoke about just a moment ago. We have opted for a self-insured plan. And so, as I mentioned, the state's plan really functions as an insurance program. That means that we would be paying those employee contributions to the state fund. So all employers in the state of Delaware, they are making contributions to this state fund. And so whether our employees use the leave or not, we would be making these payroll contributions, basically assuming in the event that any of our employees needed to use it. And so we decided to be self-insured. We're assuming that risk and avoiding all of that unnecessary payment to the state fund that is used to pay all of Delaware employees with 10 or more employees. And just FYI, as how that state fund operates, any leftover money that is not used by employees who take paid leave under the state's plan, that money would be carried over into the next year. And essentially, once the Department of Labor feels like the balance is large enough to support that paid leave offered under the state's plan, the General Assembly could come back and either change the rates that employers have to contribute. They could provide small business grants, or they could ultimately decide to use the fund for other purposes. And so the city decided to be self-insured. We're not going to make those contributions to the state fund. We also decided that we would not be requiring an employee contribution. As you heard, that we could require up to 50% of the contribution that we would be making under the state's plan. We could require that our employees would pay 0.4% of that. We have declined to require an employee contribution. And this plan will be administered internally by the Department of Human Resources. The next slide gets into the summary of the type of leave that we will be offering at the city. And so you should see that this aligns with the leave that is required under state law, with the exception of one. We've added a leave, and you'll hear more about that shortly, which we call medical leave for birthing parents. And so this aligns as far as the leave entitlement with what's required under the state. Parental leave, again, all parents are entitled to receive up to 12 weeks. That's by law. The state law requires that we pay up to 80% of their salary, again, capped at $900. We are not doing that cap. We are paying 100% of the employee's salary for paid parental leave. That next leave type is the medical leave for birthing parents, where we are offering 6 to 8 weeks of leave every year, again, at 100% of the employee's salary. Whether you get 6 or 8 weeks depends on the type of delivery you have. So 6 weeks for vaginal deliveries and 8 weeks for cesarean deliveries. And then the same types, again, as I explained, the medical, that is for the employee's serious health condition. Caregiver is if they have a family member that has a serious health condition. And then the military exigency leave. Those other leave types are in alignment with what the state law requires. An employee is able to receive 6 weeks of each of those leave types every 2 years. However, no employee is permitted to use more than 12 total weeks per year. And so it can be a combination of the two, but 12 total weeks of paid leave per year. Next slide, please. And so I wanted to go into, this is pretty much summarizes what I just spoke about regarding the paid and parental leave. But because this is one of the most substantive changes in the ordinance before you today, wanted to highlight it and also give it the, emphasis that I believe that it is due. And so the caretaking and bonding leave, again, is available to all parents in alignment with the state law as well as FMLA. For that leave, you have to have been employed for a year and have worked those requisite number of hours in the last year, so that's 1,250 hours, in order to get the caretaking and bonding leave. What's unique about the medical leave for birthing parents, aside from the fact that we're offering it, is that we are not requiring you to have worked at the City of Wilmington for any minimum period of time before you're eligible to receive it. That means that an employee on day one who is or will be given birth will be eligible to receive that leave. We have had employees who previously would not have otherwise qualified for FMLA delivered a baby and be back to work within 2 weeks because they didn't have any paid leave to cover that time. And so we feel like this is the humane thing to do. This is supportive of our workforce. And we are really excited to be able to offer this leave. And so that means that employees will be eligible to receive up to 20 weeks, again, depending on the type of birth that they have, of paid parental leave. And so, we arrived here, again, in an effort to prioritize our the well-being of our employees. We did a lot of research, and we saw that, the beginning of life from the womb into the first year is the most significant stage for development. And by age 3, about 90% of our child's brain is developed and has reached their adult size. And so the research supports this. It shows that love and nurture are the most crucial factors to child development, and so much so powerful that research now shows that it literally can change how your DNA is expressed. And so being able to support the parents during this time to develop that healthy attachment bond, and children are more likely to grow up happy. They're more likely to grow up to be resilient and independent. And so this isn't just about us being an employer and looking out for the well-being of our employees, but it's also about the well-being of our communities as well. And so I am proud of the position that the administration has taken to support growing families in this way and make us not only a front runner for public employers in the state, but nationally, as well as across all industries. And so in all that we have decided to offer with our employees, again, 80% of salary, but no cap, not stopping at $900, the parental and the birthing parent leave at 100% of the salary, as well as up to 6 weeks of those other 3 types of leave. We had to balance the impact. And so that is the purpose of the legislation before you today, in which we are proposing to decrease the sick leave maximum balance, as well as delete the provision in the city code that allows for the Director of Human Resources to provide 2 weeks at half pay once an employee has exhausted their sick leave and all but 1 week of their vacation. Next slide, please. And so this slide summarizes the changes that are in the ordinance before you. And so as you have read and can see, we are increasing the paid parental leave that we currently offer, which is only 4 weeks, to 12 weeks, which is required by state law. We are adding those 6 to 8 weeks of medical leave for birthing parents. We made a change to clarify that if while an employee is out on paid leave, there is a holiday, that leave would be extended by that holiday. So it's not counted against them, and it would serve to extend their leave. As I mentioned, we are deleting that discretionary 2 weeks at half pay, and reducing the combined leave maximum accrual from 240 to 60 days. We are permitting, and it's codified, permitting that employees will maintain their current leave balances. So anything that an employee has when this is enacted, when this is effective on January 1, although we are changing the maximum accrual, we are not taking away any leave that an employee has at this time. And so how that will work is they just will not continue to accrue leave until or if they get below that new maximum. And then we had to make an amendment to make sure that we are compliant with the law. As it stands right now, limited service employees are not eligible to receive city benefits. However, they could potentially qualify for paid leave if they work those requisite number of hours. And so we wanted to make sure that the code was consistent with what the law requires. Next slide, please. And so what you see on this slide is what is the current section 403334E. And I highlighted that, and it defines how sick leave should be used currently. And as you will see, that it was accounted for that sick leave would be used for FMLA, either for the serious medical condition of the employee or for the serious medical condition of the family member. And so right now we have essentially one pot of leave, combined leave is what we call it because it's both family and medical. And so that leave is used for everything because we don't have paid leave. And so if an employee has a serious health condition, which includes either giving birth or caretaking, if their family member has a serious health condition, just attending regular doctor's appointments, and even dealing with kind of routine family illness, all of that comes out of the current combined leave allotment. Next slide, please. And so what we're doing is essentially trying to make sure that the leave is in its appropriate place. Now that we are offering these up to 12 weeks of paid leave, in order to mitigate the operational impact that we will likely see for now employees being on these extended periods of leave, we are, one, reducing that maximum balance, but then also placing the leave kind of in the appropriate bucket. And so we have now paid leave that covers those serious medical conditions of the employee. It covers the serious conditions of the family members. It covers ongoing treatment for those chronic or serious health conditions. And so what that leaves uncovered is just those times where employees might be dealing with their own kind of acute illness, whether it's, we in this process have referred to it as sniffles and sneezes. And so, the colds that might come up for them or their family, as well as kind of routine healthcare appointments. And so the thought being that now that we are offering this paid leave at 80% of the employee's salary, there's not the need to have 240 days of paid leave, particularly when the combination of the two could have significant operational impact on our departments. Next slide, please. And so this just, again, summarizes the changes to the balances and accruals. And so this legislation, again, establishes a new sick leave balance of 60 days. However, employees are permitted to maintain their current sick leave balances. Employees will continue to earn 1 sick day a month. As it is right now, once you hit the maximum, you will not continue to accrue until you go below that maximum. Employees will also continue to have access to the donated leave bank, as well as bereavement leave. And so there are other leaves available for employees to deal with the many things that life may bring. We also offer a voluntary short-term disability plan that employees can opt into as well. And so we, really did our due diligence to make sure that, one, again, that employees will be covered during these times, these life-altering times, but also to make sure that it was fiscally prudent for the city, as well as permitted us to maintain our operations. And I believe that is it. Next slide is just any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I did want to, just one thing that you had mentioned, and I want to make sure that it's on the record, where we're reducing the combined leave maximum accrual from 240 to 60. Anyone that already has over 60 days accrued, and correct me if I misstate, but they're not going to lose. They're just not going to accrue until they're back down to that 60.
That's correct.
Right. So no one's losing any of their sick time that they already have. It's essentially the sick time that the way the city would allow for people to have extended time off for medical leave was through the accrual of sick time. And now that we have this these new formulated FMLA, the parental leave, et cetera, there's no need to keep that level of sick time because we have a process in place that they will be able to use now. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for anyone that has a question about what happens to staff's existing sick time. Councilman Oliver?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, because I have to go next door to a zoning ZBA meeting. When I read the synopsis, it was rather long. I think it's a lot of good things in here, but the only thing that I was concerned about, it said non-union members, and my question was, how have the non-union members been informed about this, number one? And I'm not going to say, because I see how it does help the employees, but, sometimes it comes back on council that we didn't get the information to them or, lack of information. And I would like to have seen that the non-union members are aware of this before we pass it. I mean, it's an important piece of legislation, but something like this, I think, we should be able to let the non-union members know opposed to passing it and then let them know afterwards. That's really my only concern with this. And I'm saying that because I remember on the third floor, when we passed something with previous administration, and several people got laid off, and it was really sad, and constituent services, and nobody knew about it. But this is totally different, and I do understand the changes, but when you just keep saying the state, I know this is the city, and I mean, just looking over it and looking at the side, and you answering some questions earlier, it does put some clarity to some of the questions that I did have. Like I said, my only thing is sometimes I like to just let people know what's going on in advance, but it is a lot of things in here that looks good to me, but I would like to have one or two non-union members here to say something towards it. But other than that, I have to go next door and do this.
Thank you, Councilwoman Oliver. If I could respond. And so we did, throughout the process, we did consult non-union members as we were developing the plan. And in fact, the biggest piece of feedback is actually reflected in the ordinance that's before you. They were concerned about, which at one point we were considering paying employees out down to 60. And so part of the biggest critique or concern that we heard from non-union was, I saved all this leave and now you're making me cash it out. What if I need to use it? What if? And so even though we believe that was equitable, we're not taking anything away from you. That is not something that's reflected here. And that is in part a result of the feedback that was received. And so to Councilmember Oliver's point, we do strive to provide timely communication to the workforce. Sometimes we can do a better job of that. There were a lot of moving parts to this. The law was revised and changed as recently as July. And so, we had to pivot and rework what we were thinking that we were going to do, as well as we were needed to negotiate with the unions. And so the goal was to have a uniform plan across the city. And so all those factors considered affected the time that employees received notice, but point absolutely taken. Non-union was consulted in the process. And then we also have a training plan for once this is adopted.
Thank you.
To make sure that they're educated on the plan.
Are there any questions from council? Councilman Owens?
Yes. So just to clarify for the record, the unions are in support of this and have got a chance to see the proposal, correct?
So in the union, what you see before you is different than what the unions would get. And so we have a policy that implements the paid leave, and then this just enacts the legislative changes that we discussed that would help us balance the impact of this. And so they, for the most part, have been either through negotiations or otherwise made aware of the policy that we're proposing. And then these changes are before you today.
Councilman Hackett?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say great presentation. I do got a question around the reduced of the accrual leave from 240 to 60. I know I guess the reduce was made to make it balance in some aspect for what we're all giving on the left side. But what happens if, like, I'm on the left side? I mean, I'm not on the left side. I'm just working, and I'm accruing days. And I guess for some people that did accrue more than 60 days, like, why did that? Like, why from the 240 to 60? Like, or is that just normal practice?
Can you ask your question again?
I guess I'm just trying to figure out, like, why far that leap from 240 all the way to 60 days accrued.
Okay. So one, sick leave, and I had the definition of what sick leave was supposed to be used for, but it really is there for when you're sick or if you have a serious medical condition. And so we have allowed the leave to be able to accumulate up to 240 days. I think the guiding principle was to make informed decisions based on the amount of leave that might actually be used if an employee experiences that type of event. And so with the 12 weeks of the paid leave on top of the 60 days, that really provides a significant amount of leave. The federal government, before paid leave came about, we had unpaid job protected leave, which only says that employers, after you have to provide 12 weeks of protected leave, once you've done that, you've met your obligation. And so this goes above and beyond that. Again, now making, with the 60 days, or a significant of our population has more than 60 days, they'll be able to maintain that. But the thought is, yes, it was a calculated thought to make sure that there was enough for those few instances. Oftentimes when we see people using the combined leave for like the appointments, it's usually like in half day or an hour appointment here, hour there. And so it goes a long way. And then again, for the more serious conditions, that would already qualify for either FMLA or the paid leave. And so it is covered. It obviously is an adjustment and is a change, but employees will still have access to income replacement, which that was the goal of the law.
Thank you.
Councilman Owens?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up off of Councilman Hackett. So under the current policy, to get to those 60 days, it would take 5 years, correct?
Yes.
But under this new policy with the medical leave, you get 6 weeks, which is equivalent to 3.5 years from day one, correct?
I haven't done the math, but I trust yours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty much it equals out so that on day one, you have more access to medical leave in case you need it. So that if someone is having a major health condition, they can use that medical leave right away, correct?
So
Or
it's
is
not on day one.
Not on day
with
one.
the requirements with the state, it requires you to be employed with the city for a year.
for the medical leave, not for a parental leave, though?
And parental, it's the birthing parent that doesn't
Birthing
require.
parent, okay.
Yeah, that doesn't require you. So you would be eligible to receive that on day one, yes.
Okay,
Whereas,
So-
to your point, you would have otherwise had to have worked here for 5 years
Yeah.
before you would have had enough leave to cover that.
okay. And it's capped at 60, no rollover, correct? After you get to the 60, if you hit 60 for
You
1
can
year,
carry it over from year to year, but you
Okay.
just can't go above 60.
go for 60. Okay, thank you.
Any other? Councilman Hackett? Oh, good.
Thank you, Chair. I do, and this is just me just wanting to know, y'all delete the discretionary 2 weeks at leave and a half. I just want to know why.
Because the thought is that we are providing so much paid leave that has typically been used for, to your point, people that may not have been here long enough to accrue leave. In fact, that is what it was designed for, because there's a provision that the discretion is basically so that if a person has, for example, abused or misused their leave, they might not necessarily be entitled to receive this. But in those, extenuating circumstances where someone does not have that leave. And so, again, because we are offering all this paid leave, it's just not necessary.
And this is just more of a statement. So basically, in y'all new plan, y'all have made categories that people can fall in instead of just discretionary and them using however they use. Basically now, if they are sick or if they are having a baby, if they are having different things, they can go right into that category or whatever that set amount of time is, kind of.
Yes, there are specific categories. Obviously, they have to meet the requirements. The discretionary leave, though, it didn't.
Following.
It wasn't categorized. It was just that if someone is out due to a severe illness and they've used all their leave, then they can ask the HR director for an additional 2 weeks at half pay. But because we have already provided so much leave, our recommendation is to delete that provision.
Thank you.
Councilman Owens?
Yes, with this new policy right now, let's say we have multiple people in a given department take parental leave or take medical leave at the same time. Do we have any estimates about how much overtime costs to fill that kind of gap if there's other employees filling in their roles or anything? I know it may not be something all departments have to deal with, but I could see like the fire department and the police department also being impacted by that as well too, especially the fire department with them being on the younger side.
Well, and primarily fire because of the overtime. And so that was calculated when we were developing this plan. We had the usage data from previous years, so we were able to see, the amount of parental leave that was taken by the various departments. But yes, the overtime cost was a calculation in this.
Any other questions from council? Ms. Bass Knight?
Yeah, just a question. For the limited service employees, so currently they receive no city benefits, so this year is going to be something new? And if so, like, what is the maximum number of hours or days for limited service employees?
So our position is that they still should not receive city benefits. However, the law does not make a distinction. The law doesn't distinguish employees how we do. So the city calls them limited service employees versus full-time. The law just says that if they work a certain number of hours within this year, that would entitle them to benefits. And so for most of our limited service employees, that should not be the case. They would not qualify for this leave. However, if they have worked those 1,250 hours within the last year and have been employed with the city, even as a LSC for more than a year, then they could potentially qualify. And they would be entitled to all the leave types that we are providing under the plan.
Okay. And Chair?
Go ahead.
And for the, since we now going to have basically two different types of categories, the combined leave and the paid family medical leave. So in the Chrono system or for tracking purposes, are there going to be like two separate tracking mechanisms? So like if I, Marshall, I need to use, I have to use some, my paid family medical leave, but I don't want that to be confused with my time for my combined leave. So at the end of the year, I want to see how much leave balance I have. Has that been factored in the system yet, or no?
It has been, and so we wanted to simplify for our employees because most of the qualifying factors are the same for FMLA and this paid leave. We are going to be using the same forms. And so when an employee would be requesting a leave of absence, they will be able to indicate whether they want to use their paid leave or not. It's going to be managed by our leave program manager. And so just like FMLA, she actually manages the time for anyone that is on an approved leave of absence, and she will continue to do so in this case, whether they are being compensated through our paid leave program or their own sick time or otherwise. And so you will be able to see and manage the balances or what is available to employees as they use or don't use their paid leave.
Yeah, thank you.
We're also going to be establishing separate pay codes for this for tracking purposes and auditing purposes because we have to be able to show that employees are accessing and being paid this leave.
Any other questions? Councilman Hack?
Thank you for, how?
When she said Councilman Hackett,
No.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at you.
Thank you for the great presentation. The last thing I just wanted to say is, can I be added as a co-sponsor, please?
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, thank you very much. This will be on, I think, December, the next council meeting? 11. This will be on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is an ordinance to amend Chapter 2 of the City Code to require that all legislation includes a fiscal impact statement prepared by the Office of OMB. This is being introduced by myself, and essentially what we're trying to do is codify or formalize a process that already exists. So a lot of times when either the administration or a council member introduces a piece of legislation, when it goes to the law department will let us know on that legislation whether there's a fiscal impact or not. What this is doing is taking it a step further and basically doing what most legislative bodies do, including the General Assembly and other municipal governments, is actually getting the Office of Management and Budget to create a formal fiscal impact statement that is going a little bit deeper than just saying it's going to cost $300,000 or it's going to cost $100,000 or there's minimal fiscal impact, but really actually looking at, for example, if we're passing legislation that affects more than one department, we don't necessarily know what that impact is going to be, or if there is going to be a change in employment, or if there's going to be a cost associated with training. Is there going to be a cost associated with new software? Those are things that we don't have necessarily have purview to. And as we are looking at how we govern and streamline and become more fiscally responsible in our legislating, I think this is just a way that we can start to say, okay, be a little more proactive in doing the work up front to find out how much the things that we want to see accomplished are going to cost. And this isn't just for city council, this is across the board. So if the administration they want to introduce a piece of legislation and they get a sponsor from one of us, we still need to be able to see and understand what the fiscal impact would be. And so before a piece of legislation goes for third and final, we should have that information. And it's not to say that we can't vote on something if we don't have it. It's not to say that a member of council, it must adhere to what that fiscal note is saying. It's basically a starting point to be able to understand how much it's going to cost, and then also go back and challenge the administration to say, okay, well, you're saying this is going to be $300,000. Explain it to me. And it's also not a piece that says if it's too high of a fiscal note, we can't do it. So this is what the intent, the purpose of this is really to formalize the process and also to get us to look at what it's going to cost so we can be a little bit more proactive as we're looking into the next budget year, and as we're looking in future budgets, to really start to say, okay, this is something we want to establish. How much is it going to cost? How much is it going to be? How much is it going to impact the budget? And where's that revenue coming from? So that's the intent of this. I would love your feedback. This is not going to the floor, I don't think, until January. So there's time to make revisions. And I really want to hear your discussion on this, or if you have any questions. But essentially, that's what we're doing, is going to OMB. They have 15 days to come back. Well, actually, it's not even us. It's the law department. Law department will go to OMB. OMB will provide the law department with the report that will then get shared with council. Councilman Owens?
Yes, and I see some people from OMB are here as well, too. So my first question always is, what will be the impact on the staff that will be doing the work? So is a 15-day turnaround, business day turnaround, is that enough time? Is that putting too much of a constraint on them? I don't know if they want to.
Hello, Robert Greco, Budget Director. Now, it's a great question. We thought about this too. Right now, it's not formalized, but we do a lot of these impact statements. And it will be case by case. So we will have the opportunity, if we start working on it, we see there's some challenges, we will communicate, stay in close communication with council and with the law department. But as of right now, we don't see it being too onerous. I don't think we'll need additional staffing or anything like that.
And there is a provision in here that if there's more time needed, then once you contact us, we can extend it out.
Right.
And my follow-up to that, and this is to council staff, on average, about how many pieces of legislation are requested, at least, by council members?
If I can, Chairwoman?
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. So, I mean, that varies from councilperson to councilperson. Some councilpersons are more busier than others. But I say on a average 2 weeks, we're probably looking at easily probably about somewhere between about 10 pieces of legislation, but not necessarily that it means that all 10 pieces of those legislation makes like a council agenda, meaning there's research and strategy that's going on behind the scenes. Then the following week, there's more legislation requests or ideas that's out there. Not that it comes fully to fruition, but we do chart that out, and it is a great question.
Thank you. Councilman Hackett and then Councilman Spadola. Oh, Councilman Spadola?
Thank you. Please add me as a co-sponsor. I think it's great legislation, and as I'll probably touch on with the next piece too, I think it's very important for us. People are just fed up of their costs going up, and we need to be aware of if we're going to be pushing costs onto the residents to pay for our legislation. We need to know what it's going to cost for every ordinance. So this is good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hackett?
Yeah, I just have a question, and this is based between a sponsor. When we first came on the council, we all sat down and we created rules based upon how the council was going to perform. One of those rules state that, we are, in all our ordinances, that we have a fiscal impact. And, I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between what our rules state and what this ordinance is trying to do.
So
That's my first question.
Okay, so this, first of all, this codifies it, so this becomes a process for councils, period. And so this goes beyond the rules of the 108th. This is what now City Council and the City of Wilmington will have as far as a process moving forward. So when we're long gone, unless another council decides to change something, there's a formal process in place now that requires the legislative body to do this work. And so it's up to currently the 108th session of council, we approve rules. When we go out and the 109th come in, they can approve a separate set of rules. So this is basically taking something and making it just a process, a general process for all city council, all administrative bodies to follow. That is something that we really should be doing anyway, and we do. But this is just making sure that now there's a formalized process. We're making sure we're not bypassing a step in order to pass an ordinance that will be unfunded because we didn't do this part. Now we know if we've got to, if there's something that's coming up that's going to need a budget amendment, now we're preparing for that. So, or if it's going to be something that's not going to be funded now, but we'll need to review and add to the budget for the next fiscal. Now we're doing that. We're being more proactive than just kind of reactive. Any other questions from council? Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
just if I can get a follow-up. In this legislation, it says that all ordinance, resolutions shall include either a fiscal sponsor statement prepared by the Office of Management and Budget or a written statement for OMB. That's A1. Then it goes to A2 and says, A3 and says, no ordinance or substance resolution shall be listed on a city council committee meeting agenda for discussion or a city council meeting agenda for third or final reading or consideration unless this requirement or subsection has been satisfied. I'm just trying to realize, are we not doing that already? Like, is that not already something that we're doing already? Like, we're not having fiscal impacts on all the ordinances that have been coming forward?
We just had an ordinance vetoed that we passed because for whatever reason, the numbers weren't numbering, for lack of a better term. And so we had to, we just went through this. And so this, if we had have gone through the extra step of actually getting the full statement and not just having a number on the ordinance that said $300,000, if we had actually gotten the full fiscal statement from OMB that has the estimated cost or savings, a statement of potential impact, a statement of impact on the legislation on staffing, operations, and capital expenditures, then we would have made a better, we wouldn't have had to go through the process of the veto and then a new ordinance. So this is, and I'm not saying that's always the case, but that's a perfect example of where we did have this in place, but it didn't work the way it should have. This kind of forces us to make it a little more streamlined. Follow up.
No, I'm just saying, but her legislation did have a fiscal impact. And right now, our fiscal impact, like you said, it's supposed to go to the law department, it's supposed to go out to OMB or to the departments. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out if this process is already going that direction and it wasn't correct when it was going in that direction right now, what's going to be the difference now? If we create an ordinance that's basically doing the same thing we're already doing in our rules, what different, like, is this a different financial impact statement that we're doing?
We're actually clarifying this. There is, what's in the rules is like one sentence, right? This is actually clarifying the process. So there's a whole process here, whereas before, the process is kind of just loosely assumed. Now we're actually saying this is our process. That's really it. It's just formalizing a process. It's just
Well,
good governance, honestly.
I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying, when we first took oath, we had rules that were based upon how we were going to operate as a council. And, we put in there that our fiscal sponsor, we all have fiscal sponsor in our ordinances now. I'm just trying to figure out the difference between, what's going to be the difference between the ordinance and our rules if we're already doing it. Like everybody's ordinance already has fiscal sponsor. OMB's fiscal notes. OMB is already looking at it. The law department's already looking at it. So I'm not sure what's the difference. Are you saying, unless there's a difference?
Yep, I'll take, we'll start with Chief of Staff Walker, and then Councilman Owens and Councilman Spadola. Actually, you guys can go first, and then we'll get the.
I was just going to say that I think the difference, Councilmember Hackett, is, as Councilmember Bracey stated earlier, the rules are changed every council session. This will put in the law that's how it is. And unless the council wants to change the law, this will be the process in the law.
Councilman Owens?
Well, Councilman Spadola already said it. Pretty much just going forward, this will be the rules that every council body would have to follow. In bringing forth legislation and creates a process that requires the law department to talk to OMB as we're getting legislation drafted for us.
Chief of Staff Walker?
Yes, hi, Daniel Walker, Deputy Chief of Staff, Madam Chair.
Sorry about that.
Oh, good. Excuse my voice, I've been talking a lot today, so apologies. Councilman Hackett, to answer your question, you're absolutely right that this is in the council rules. And what Chairwoman Bracey said concerning the one, the line that mentions the need for a fiscal impact statement on ordinances. The reason why the administration is supportive of this ordinance after Councilwoman Bracey approached us about the need to do this is because it mandates a process for us on the administration side. If you, for those watching in the public, the ordinance dictates how the operations work between the law department and OMB. Currently, the law department makes a judgment on which departments and or offices and divisions are most impacted by an ordinance that may be proposed from council and the administration, and they reach out to those individuals. Right now, what we're supportive of in this ordinance is putting OMB at the center of that outreach from the law department and allowing this to dictate the administration's process to be more responsive to city council ordinances. It's our read of the ordinance is from the time it's requested by the law department, there's 15 days to respond. If OMB does not feel as though they have the adequate information to respond within those 15 days, they can send communication saying, we're working on it. This is what we're waiting on to complete the fiscal note, and that time can be extended to 30 days. There is no opportunity for OMB to extend it beyond 30 days without a conversation with the city council member or staff and reaching a mutually agreed upon time for delivery based off of the submission request. And so we're supportive of that because it helps dictate our process on the administration side.
Thank you. Any other, Councilman Hackett?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Chief of Staff. I appreciate that. I'm a new council person, so as
All
we
good,
go, we
sir.
do a lot of learning here. And I just had some concerns. I think I would think if we're dealing with money, OMB would be at the center already. So I'm just partly confused. Our job and our rules said that we need a fiscal sponsor. A fiscal note here, a fiscal impact here, and at the end of the day, I think it's the administration that determines who decides at that point who does the fiscal note, so I'm not sure, we're dealing with money, why OMB is not at the center already.
We agree with you, and for our administration, they are, but certainly in past administrations, they were not, and we can't determine that they will be in the future, which is why we're supportive of right-sizing that.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councilman Owens?
Yeah, so on page 4, section E, when it talks about substitute ordinances and floor amendments, it doesn't give a exact time period in which would show good faith reaching out to OMB. What I may think is significant amount of time may be different from OMB or may be different from another council member. Is there any reason why you left this portion vague, or could we put a 48-hour or something in there like that for amendment?
I'm open to that. I think part of this, the reason is if we're on the floor, if we're at a council meeting, you're not going to have time to call OMB. So if there's something that it's already gotten to the floor, and then say Councilman Spadola wants to move to change something, strike something right away, at that point there is the process there is no time. I do think we should allow, and so that's why it's like we should allow for OMB to then do a revision. But if we're on the floor voting, it's kind of too late. We've already gone through committee. So, but I am open to, changing this wording around.
Follow up. So I agree with you when it comes to the floor amendments and the amendments, like if they're smaller. But if you're doing a whole substitute ordinance, that's a huge rewrite, right? I just want to make sure that if we are going to pass something like this, that we do it in good faith and we make sure that we try to give the employees, time to actually work on something and not rush it through. Okay. Like if someone comes to them at 7 or 8 in the morning and says, hey, like I have a whole substitute ordinance for the council meeting that's tonight, I'm going to make sure that they actually have enough time to look at it.
That's fair.
But other than that, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Any other comments from council members? Councilwoman Walauer?
Yeah, Councilwoman Bracy, I'm hoping maybe we can have a conversation about this legislation, just to make sure that I do have some concerns about how it might tie up the whole legislative process, just because if you make any change, you have to go back to OMB. I think that we just want to make sure that there's not kind of barriers towards evolving legislation when needed, but then have it gum up the process. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about that, maybe after this meeting.
Sure, happy to. Thank you. Any other? Councilman?
This is another question for the sponsor. I just have a question around, so are you, our process that we have now currently is not working?
I didn't say it wasn't working. What I'm saying is this formalizes the process, and this actually this takes us beyond this administration and this council. And so the way we work as a council and the way we work as an administration now is not the way the last council and the last administration worked, and it won't be the way the next mayor and the next council work. However, with processes that have been codified and formalized, there are things that won't change and that kind of help us transition from council to council, administration to administration, and then there's a process. And that's really what this is about. I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying is it can be tweaked and it can be better and it can be formal. And so that's where we're coming from.
And I think that's great. I just, me personally, I just ask why, like why now? You know, for almost probably 20, 30 years, always been a fiscal, note there. So I'm just trying to figure out like why now does it have to be codified when, in some instances it's just been happening. So that's just my thought process right now. Even when we talk about our people and we're supposed to just be safekeeping, and even our process of legislation. I think the process that we have so far has been going good. I haven't seen any legislation that hasn't had a fiscal note. If it says it is not no fiscal note responsible, that's what it says. We move forward. I think OMB does a great job. I think I don't. Me personally, I get what you're saying about us, the 108 and the 109, the 1010. But I just think I just ask why now, just my opinion. So.
Any other comments? Marshall?
Yeah, just a general comment is, within the legislation, it mentions about no ordinance or substantive resolution shall be listed on the city council committee agenda for discussion or council committee agenda for third and final reading. Just want to bring that to y'all attention just to make sure you're aware of that. Also, there are situations listed in the ordinance in which a fiscal impact statement cannot be prepared, which sort of contradicts with some of the language in here. Then also, there are many times when there are last minute legislative requests that are received from the administration, as well as last minute legislative requests that are received by council members where they want legislation to be drafted swiftly, and sometimes that's less than the 15 days for OMB, or even like 30 days. So we just have to be mindful of the legislative calendar when people come into to law department, and our council staff want to know why this legislation isn't moving forward. If it impacts with the fiscal impact statement, realizing that you want to know what the fiscal impact is before you move forward with legislation. But it's also I just want y'all just to be mindful of that, because, there's a lot of council members that do come, no different than the paid parental leave. That legislation was on the December 4th council meeting for first and second, and now on the Finance Committee meeting for December the 8th, and for third and final on December the 11th. So that was sort of, fast-tracked. Is that going to be the norm, for typical cases? I don't know, but just wanted to mention that and to share that.
Thank you. And I will say, just in response to that, we can look at what language needs to be added for cases where there's something that needs to go on, last minute. However, the majority of what we do here, we should be following a process, and we should actually be making sure that we know how much things are going to cost. If we are good legislators, I don't understand where there would be a problem with really having a clear picture about what we're doing with the city taxpayers' money. And so if we're introducing an ordinance, if we are introducing legislation that is going to change the way we do business or is going to have an impact financially, we should know what that is. And we should be okay with taking an extra day or two or week to really understand what the process is. There's not that much that we do that needs to be rushed. There are things that we have to do that are state mandated, like this FMLA legislation. We have to get that done because it needs to be in place before January. Things of that nature, I think we can add a provision into this legislation for, but the majority of what council does, we should be able to do within the time frame without it kind of gumming up the system. At least that's my hope. Councilman Hackett?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I guess that's, the difference between us wanting to codify this because, we don't want it to move out of the 108 to the 109 to the 1010. I totally understand. I think that's a great idea. But I guess I'm just asking for those different restraints that might be put on legislation now. I don't see the need, and I'm trying to figure out the push for that right now. Like what are we trying to fix? here. That's just my thing. I'm just trying to, like, if we're already have this process, we're already doing it. The idea was to make sure that it goes from the 108 to 109 to 1010. Why are there other restraints in here? Just in my opinion, and I'm just asking.
Councilman Spadola?
Sure. I think just in general, we definitely run the risk of doing more damage by acting too quickly and passing legislation than acting too slowly. And this time last year specifically, there was legislation that got introduced so quickly that civic associations didn't even have time to really air their concerns about it with their council members, because I think it might have been this exact same time where there was a meeting mid-November and your back-to-back meetings in December, where if you didn't, if your meeting fell out of that time frame, before you knew it, something's introduced and it's up for a third and final. So I think in general, the slower we act with a lot of things, the better off the people are.
Thank you. Councilman Hackett?
There's a charge back on this. This doesn't slow the process. OMB can come down and do the same thing, evaluate some legislation and say this is the fiscal impact, just like that's been going on currently. So I don't see how this slows us down. Just my thought. I'm here right now. I'm hearing that this needs to be codified from the 108 to 109 to 110. I think that's great. Slowing down legislation, I don't see that. OMB, we have some of the brightest here that's, be able to do the things that we do, especially when we talk about our budget that they've been doing. So, I'm not saying that it's a timing thing. I'm just trying to figure out the why now, so.
Okay, we have a comment from the public. Cheyenne Miller.
Hello. Hi, Cheyenne Miller. I guess I just really appreciate that we're looking at fiscal notes. I worked really hard on last year's rent stabilization bill, and one of the biggest concerns brought from the legislature was whether or not this bill would have a fiscal impact. And while we did not see a fiscal note on there, we knew there would be a fiscal impact. And so it's good to know that there's an interest in having consistency. However, one of the concerns I have is with the state legislature, they have an independent body that does the fiscal notes for them. It's called the Comptroller General's Office. And while they may ask questions of departments of what the impact in terms of any legislation that's being proposed, what the fiscal impact of that legislation could be, at the end of the day, it's responsible for this independent body. I have a lot of concerns about the fact that we know that there are always a emphasis on having separated powers, and saying that we have to go to OMB makes me worry, given that OMB sits at the pleasure of the mayor's office. And so I just wonder if there's any way to consider having a separated independent office whose job it is to provide these fiscal impact statements, as opposed to saying that we need to pull the administration in on every single bill, especially given that the administration opposes some legislation that's being proposed by council members, not because of the impact of the fiscal note, but because of the fact that they don't agree with the bill, which is the case of the escrow bill that was passed recently. And so I just wonder if there's any way to kind of focus on still providing these fiscal impact statements, but making sure that it's done in a way that still keeps the separations of power strong, and making sure that we're actually protecting the fact that we know that we have council members that got great ideas that should not be blocked. And if there is already a process, I agree with Councilmember Hackett. It does beg the question of why aren't we following the current process that exists? And then just in general, my understanding of the bill is limited, given that I'm just now looking at it. But I wonder who's responsible for preparing the request to create this fiscal note. Is it required of the council member to create the request, or does it have to come from the staff, like the solicitor's office or the lawyers or whatever? Just wondering generally.
Thank you. And just to answer that one question, the law department would do the request. Any other questions or comments from the public?
I have one more question.
Councilman Hackett?
One more, and I'll be done after this. I think Councilman Owens touched light on this, and this is just the substitute ordinance or the floor amendments, where it basically just states that The city clerk designates shall note on the record, like basically saying if there's not enough time for OMB to be able to, review the floor amendments or the substitute, the city clerk can just basically designate and say that they didn't have enough time to review it, and then there's no fiscal note. So kind of like just, if council wanted to, and this is my thing, council wanted to, once they got their fiscal impact, they could just go to the floor, and if they did need to make any changes, they could just go through with the city clerk and not have to actually go through OMB at that point. Because the city clerk can just say, I just want to ask, is that correct or not?
So if we're on the floor and we don't have time, yes, there is a provision in here where the city clerk could, or if we were, and we might change this language, where if it's in a committee meeting, the committee chair could do it. Basically, that, there was, for whatever reason, you're just stating on the record why there is no fiscal note. And that's simply what that is.
Okay.
So if we're doing a floor amendment, obviously there's no time to call OMB because we're on the floor. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, this doesn't need a vote out. It will be on the agenda in January, and I look forward to following up with all of you and for any changes or to make this even stronger. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is a resolution from Councilmember Willauer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So basically what this resolution does is that it encourages the city of Wilmington to implement Ordinance 23-015, which was passed last session by this council, which created a tax abatement program for homeowners. And the components of that were that the person had to be a homeowner, have a household income less than 80% of the median income of Wilmington homeowners, have lived in the property for a minimum of 10 years, and have received a property tax bill from the city that is at least 50% higher than their city tax bill last year. So this council put that law into place with Ordinance 23-015, and what this resolution does is that the city of Wilmington never implemented that law. And we had the reassessment, which was the trigger in that ordinance for this going into effect, and the city administration did not implement this program. And I did write to the administration asking about it. I didn't hear back. I usually do hear back from the administration when I make requests, but I didn't hear back about this. So, what this resolution does is it's a statement by council that that council passed a law and that we're asking the city of Wilmington to implement that law, which is a homeowner property tax abatement program for homeowners who got tax increases 50% or more as a result of a reassessment.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councilman Spadola.
Thank you, Councilmember Racy. Councilmember Willauer, ironically, my first question is, any idea what the fiscal impact would be? Do we have any discernment on that as the numbers have come in?
Well, so this is just a resolution. So the original ordinance had a fiscal note on it, which you can review. It said, I think, that they didn't know. But, this particular, I did take a look at the numbers. I actually want to sit down with the administration before, talking about those numbers. But to me, these are homeowners who are long-term homeowners, who are low income, who are facing tax bills that they can't afford. And, just bringing in some of the other aspects of this reassessment, we have broad agreement at the county, at the state, at the city level that a lot of the assessments, especially in the neighborhoods where the home values aren't as high, that they were overassessed. So a lot of people have acknowledged that a lot of these bills are wrong. So what this is it's making good on a commitment to low and moderate income homeowners that they won't be taxed out of their homes. So the fiscal impact is important, but look, from my looking at the numbers, I think it's reasonable. And then I also think we have a tax stabilization fund, and these are the kinds of things that we need to to consider drawing on that tax stabilization fund, because this is certainly an issue of taxes going up.
Thank you. Madam Chair, can I continue?
Yes.
I agree with what you said, Councilmember Wilhauer, and I plan to support it. The one thing that I would just, wave in front of the council, though, is, as I mentioned earlier, people are fed up with their costs going up. I remember this gentleman speaking. I think your property taxes have quintupled, if I'm correct, from a couple hundred to a couple thousand. Yeah, all together.
He's going to make public comment.
Okay. Well, so my point doesn't change, though, that moving forward, we have to be concerned about any increases we're passing on to the residents with legislation we pass. And there's current spending that if this does have a fiscal impact of, let's just say, $500,000, it's probably going to be a little less than that, I'm guessing. Is there spending that we're looking at? So because we're going to have a structural deficit by 2030, $15 million annually, we're going to eat into that tax stabilization. That'll be gone in a couple years. So I just urge this council, especially as we go into the budget hearings, we have to have we got to sharpen our pencil when it comes to the expense side too. But I agree with you, Councilmember Wilhauer. We don't want anybody to lose their home because of their bad assessment. And some good news, though, is I did hear of a successful appeal by a neighbor. They had an assessment of over $500,000, and they were reduced to $300,000, which is more in the ballpark. So I think that's going to be rolling in, and hopefully that will additionally, help remedy the issue that we shouldn't have had in the first place. But I'm happy to hear your response, Councilmember Wilhauer. With the caveat, I have another meeting at 6:30, and we'll be stepping out momentarily.
Yeah, so does everybody else. So I think that we want to have public comment before I speak.
Oh, okay. Any other council members before I open it up to the public? Okay, online, we have Dutch Hopkins. Oh,
These guys have to go. So.
oh, you can go. You can go ahead, Ms. Lourdes. You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
All right. Let me pass out the little packet that I prepared. Okay. I don't have one.
They just denied over anyone those. I thought you should be over there.
Holland, would you let them?
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, I don't mind.
And state your name.
Thank you. We had to be leaving to us for our MPC meeting, but I want to say thank you for listening to us. My name is Lourdes Rivera. I'm a homeowner for 35 years and a vice president of the MPC, as well. We also part of the Wilmington Neighborhood Coalition. I'm here today because the issue is very important to me and as well as my community. I'm here to ask the city to implement Ordinance 23015, which City Council already passed. The law helps low and moderate income home owner when the property taxes go up by 50%. It frees city taxes so people are pushed out. They may be pushed out of their home. I heard my neighbors understand their taxes on the bill and the letter that they have received. And many of them already have gotten the 500 or 600 credit to their taxes, in which it's a Band-Aid to the high cost of their mortgage, to their taxes. People come and ask me, how will I pay this or will I lose my home? This ordinance is supposed to protect people. Why I do not understand is why are a small homeowner paying so much money on these taxes, and more where big investor get tax break. We live in our home, we take care of our home, we are not making a profit, we're just trying to make a day-to-day living, like all of you may be also being affected, because this is happening all over the state. City Council passed this law for a reason, but a law this is not implemented, do not help anyone. People need to help. We need help now, because the deadline is December the 31st. Mayor Kearney, please do what council already approved. Please protect long-term homeowner. Please implement the Ordinance 23015. Also, in this minute I got left, today it took me 3 hours to talk to this task, calling them for my neighbors. Last time I was here, I presented you with my neighbor paying $1,734. I was online today waiting an hour and a half for them to want to send me another application for, it's only inquired to them, not to us, it inquired to them, in which their house was addressed as a commercial when their house is residential. So now they want them to do another application that will apply to them. But how many people, their home may or may not be placed as a commercial? Also, a neighbor reached out to me in Newark because of the lack of language, and their taxes went up $2,535, and they're homeowner as well. And they reached out to me. I was 1 hour with their mortgage company are not getting the taxes. They're getting behind. So that's another issue that also affecting mortgages people as well. And people like me that already pay my home. So this is affecting everyone. What I want to make a point is that I would like this resolution to be passed, not only because of me, it's because of everyone that is going through this issue. And it's also including the city of Newark. This resident talking about, they live in 273, and they approached me on Sunday, showed me a bill of $2,540. And it's affecting the city of Newark as well. And they don't, the lack of language is ridiculous when you call the taxes. It's a lack of language. This is, and even if they put Spanish people online, even if people put Spanish online, people do not understand this bill, even if they speak Spanish.
Thank you.
I just want this resolution to pass, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Great. My name is Jamila Davey. I live in the 5th District. And first of all, I want to thank Council for your efforts to ease the impact, the financial burden that the reassessment is having on homeowners. I happen to be a renter, so I'm still, I know, this is going to impact me that way. But today I wanted to ask you to support Resolution 0155 to implement this program, that's going to freeze property taxes to the levels they were at before the reassessment for long-term homeowners who are low and moderate income and qualify on several counts, and they also have to apply for the program. So when I look back at the 2023 bill, and looking in it, I was it's notable that the council was looking out ahead, seeing that being aware that new development in neighborhoods and revitalization plans were going to potentially impact long-term community members who hadn't made that investment in their properties. They were likely to be potentially harmed, and they were also noting that over 26% of homeowners, like in a 2020 to 2024, window, are 1/3 of them, 26% are paying at least 1/3 of their income for housing costs. So they're already cost burdened when it comes to paying their mortgages and paying their housing costs. And this was before the reassessment. This is before we had the numbers and scrutinized them and learned that our low and moderate income communities were bearing the brunt, were disproportionately adversely impacted by these numbers and are seeing 100% increases, 200% increases. So, this program is needed now more than ever, when council initially supported it. So, again, it seems like a no-brainer to go ahead and, press to have it, implemented. And, the other thing is to note that, it was supposed to be in effect for this tax year. It's a measure. I know we've got some other measures on the table, like there's that circuit breaker that Councilmember Owens presented to, for the moratorium on foreclosures with the payment plan. And then we have this other bill that was supposed to help amend the data and give people access to appeals, but this program was supposed to save people money on this bill. And to the question of the fiscal impact, the bill also says they looked at sister cities, they looked to Philly to see what they did for their long-term residents, and that you're looking at models. A lot of cities are having, when they see, when these computer-assisted models are shifting the tax burden from downtown commercial properties to homeowners, that they're having trouble collecting their taxes.
You have 10 seconds.
So, what's the fiscal impact going to be? You're depressing cost burden long-term homeowners to pay tax bills they can't pay, like can't collect it anyway. So, another reason to, work to get this implemented.
Thank you. Any other public comments from inside? Please state your name.
Yes, can you hear me clearly? Yes, my name's Holland Ralston Jr. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. So it's good evening now, members, council members, and those in attendance. I realize that I'm not a lawyer, and this committee meeting is not a court of law, yet the principles of law are very applicable. And I feel aggrieved. I would like to state first that my city tax bill went from like $296 to over $1,300. My county and school tax bill went from like $500 to $4,700. Okay, this is my position on the reassessment of my property at 831 and a half North Church Street, Wilmington, Delaware. First of all, I hate that I'm at odds with my county and city government, but I know that fighting is prescribed for the Muslim, even though it's a thing I dislike. So this is my predicament. My property taxes for the city went from approximately $296 to $1,300. Those are the better numbers. Based on the reassessment value of my property by Tyler Technologies. I've already been aggrieved by the city because I paid my city property taxes even though I'm being taxed illegally in my understanding of the documents that I have. My county property and school taxes have gone, like I said again, from approximately $500 to $4,700. And I think that this taxation is illegal and unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment. Due process and equal protection under the law. My property at 831 and a half North Church Street, Wilmington, Delaware, to the best of my knowledge, is zoned as a mixed-use property, mixed-use residential property, meaning the combination of commercial and residential. My records indicate that in the county records and parcel search, my property has moved from a mixed-use and residential listing to a commercial status during this reassessment overreach of authority by Tyler Technologies, Newcastle County, and the city of Wilmington, Delaware. My contention is that the Wilmington Zoning Board is the city governing department with the authority to rezone properties.
You have 10 seconds.
At an open and transparent procedure known as the Wilmington Zoning Board. I have not been made aware of any hearing, and this arbitrary rezoning of my property is illegal.
Thank you.
The city county.
Thank you. Your
Yes.
time has expired.
Only have a few seconds.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. The city, county, and school taxation at the current tax rate, and these tax obligations are therefore illegal and must be set aside until this matter is completely corrected. I am not against paying taxes. I've paid my property taxes for the city. The city taxes, like I said, was over $1,300. But this illegal taxation is denying me the right of life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness because of this overreaching and therefore illegal taxation. The illegal manner and process used to overtax my property and the denial of my due process rights therefore cannot stand. This has to be a page out of the playbook of the gentrification plan. It is possible to use the grandfather clause in a situation like mine to immediately remedy my situation until this miscarriage of injustice can be corrected. And I do support the homeowners abatement ordinance. Thank you very much. And I ask that this information be turned over to the law department because to me this is a legal matter that my property has arbitrarily been moved from residential mixed use to commercial on the whims of somebody, I'm assuming Tyler Technology or the county. And this is just something that's illegal. So I thank you for hearing my argument. And again, I gave you the documentation there, Mr. Kobe Owens, and all of that information is in there, and I think it needs to be investigated through the Wilmington Law Department, and you guys have already charged me.
Thank you. Thank you. Online, we have Dutch Hopkins.
Hi, sorry. I'm Dutch Hopkins, and I live in the 7th District. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to join this meeting tonight to ask for your support. I actually sent out emails over the weekend to everybody on council asking them to support this amendment, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of my story. I'm sure you're hearing a million people complain about how much their taxes went up. When this all started, you first in December you received notice of a tentative assessment from Tyler. Go through an informal phone hearing. That first mistake was that Tyler added extra square footage to my house. I called them and got that resolved. On March 13th, I received an email from Newcastle County Formal Support at tylertech.com. My first thought was, why is Tyler Tech, excuse me, I'm going to start that. Tyler Tech involved in this appeal process or these meetings at all when they're the ones that messed everything up to begin with? So it was dated on March 13th, and it stated that my estimates property of July 1st fair market value was not provided, and I had 5 days to respond. So I sent an email to Newcastle County Assessment, as well as a paper showing that I had just received this email on May 16th, which is pretty much more than 5 days out. I also sent them a copy of the original page of that appeal, that everything was done right, and then I received an email from them on May 16th confirming the receipt of all of that. Tyler, after Tyler said there was no change in the tentative assessment of $297,000, I filed an appeal. So on November 11th, I received an email from Newcastle County making a stipulation offer that was riddled with mistakes. It was the wrong address. It was the wrong, oh my Lord, excuse me, I'm sorry. It said that they were reassessing the new value at $229,000, dropping it from $630,000, which has nothing to do with my property. So I called the Delaware State assessor and told him about the mistakes and asked him for a corrected copy.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay. Do I have another minute? Or another second? 30 seconds, okay. So anyway, I refused the stipulation and asked for a hearing. Just found out that I'm not going to even get a hearing until January. My city taxes tripled because of all this mess. I've paid them already. That's why I'm asking everybody to support this on Thursday. I've already paid my taxes. There are so many people out there that can't afford to pay their taxes. And I'm really concerned about other seniors that don't understand this whole process to begin with. They didn't even do appeals because they thought it was too confusing, and there hasn't been any help for people like that. So at least this would be a little bit of a help to people. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have Kylie K.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment today. My name is Kylie Kimmel, and I live in the 5th District. I did send an email to all of the council members that really expressed a lot of my concerns about this whole process and the financial burden, the inequity of it. So I won't go on at length here. I also think that a lot of the previous speakers have touched on a lot of the same points, so I won't repeat that. But I just want to express that I am really hopeful that everyone will consider supporting this resolution that Councilwoman Willauer has proposed. I would hope that anybody who's on the council would be working their hardest to figure out how to support the most vulnerable people in our community. And to me, it seems like this original ordinance was designed specifically to do that. And I'm really not understanding why it was never implemented unless once the tax reassessment happened, the financial impact was maybe alarming. But the financial impact that's happening to everyday people like myself and my neighbors, like people could be forced out of their homes. It's interesting. I was at a neighborhood association meeting recently, and Councilwoman Willauer has, in my opinion, as long as I've known her and as long as she's been on the council, has been just very vocal in advocating for the neighborhood and advocating for low and moderate income households. And there was another council person there because it's a split, the neighborhood split between two districts. And that other person couldn't really commit to fighting that fight for their constituents. And that was really disheartening to me. And, you know, it wasn't a long conversation, so maybe there's more to it. But I do know that this person had a lot to say about blight. And it just makes me think about what the root cause of all of that is. If people are going to lose their homes because they cannot afford these tax bills, then our blight situation is not going to get any better. People being pushed out of their homes and being, you know, working poor, that, where does blight come from?
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I kind of lost my train of thought there. So I guess I'm going to end. I'm going to thank Christian Willauer again, Councilwoman Willauer, for bringing this to this meeting today. And I'm really hopeful that it gets the support of the other council members, and that my understanding is that there is other legislation proposing that the financial burden be increased from 50% to 100%, which is outrageous in my opinion, and that not be something that's supported. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christina Panza.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Christina Panza. Thank you for opening this up to public comment. I'm from the 5th District. I have been an early warner of all of the problems that have been arising from this. I actually looked back today. It was January 14th of 2025 when the first round of property assessments hit our mailboxes, and when I posted in my local neighborhood Facebook group about what I thought were egregious and disproportionate errors across the Hilltop neighborhood. Since then, I have been to countless city council meetings. I was at the Newcastle County meetings. I've been in person and online at the state meetings. All of you have heard from me on multiple occasions, as have all of the other levels of government, with my multi-page position papers outlining the upfront errors, the math problems, the assumptions, the disparity for low-income households, the lack of communication, the inaccessibility to people with who speak different languages, the lack of written communication in general, with like one letter per phase mailed out. And I am grateful that there are some resolutions and some bills in place that begin to address that. And I know that the city also has in the works some of the longer viewed stuff, including reassessing certain neighborhoods. But I think that like we need to address that and also say this resolution is really important to encourage the city administration to move forward with abatement. And also, I think we could be doing a lot more. I think we need to be flagging homeowners if they are senior, if they're eligible for credits. In the state hearings, Kent and Sussex County were able to do that, and we should have the ability to do so at the city level. I think Councilman Spadola asked a good question about what the fiscal impact is. And also, I think that the fiscal impact for abating low-income homeowners whose taxes have increased by 50% or more and who have lived in their homes for 10 years or more are actually pretty ludicrously restrictive restraints. And I think a better question would be to ask, what is the fiscal impact of not addressing the big businesses who are getting, and I'll stand behind this because I can back it up with data, tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars of functional tax decreases because their property values were undervalued. I think that disparity is something we can claim from the data we have. And the fact that the city administration published a map stating as much. And I'd also like to just say and go on record so that the city is aware and cannot deny later that there are residents who are actively trying to get a hold at the county level to get their bills adjusted because their appeal values are not being applied to bills. And they are unable to get a hold of anyone after hours, as Lourdes also said. So thank you for your time. Please pass this resolution and continue to push for justice for our at-risk population.
Thank you. Cheyenne Miller. Cheyenne Miller. Okay, we'll go to Carmen.
I just got the unmute thing.
Okay.
Cheyenne Miller, just want to give support for this resolution. I do have a lot of concerns about the fact that we continue to see council pass resolutions and ordinances, and we're not seeing those ordinances implemented, and that is really important. I remember several years ago, Linda Gray passed an ordinance to create a homeowner, our home buyer access program, and it was a great program. And I remember calling 6, 7, 8, 9 months to the city, just trying to see when this program was going to be implemented. The resolution speaks to an ordinance that I believe was put up in maybe 2023 or 2024 by a previous council, and special thanks to Michelle Harley, who actually put up the original ordinance. But it's just disappointing when you continue to see that city council is doing good things like passing these types of ordinances, and then the administration is not implementing them, especially knowing that we had a property tax reassessment come up. And so it's super important that we see this resolution passed, but it's even more important that we see this program implemented as it was passed in the law. And I'm really concerned now that I'm seeing Councilmember Harley put up an ordinance that would actually weaken this program before we even had a chance to see how it would operate. And so while I'm speaking in support of this resolution passing, I really do hope that we give an opportunity for the program to be implemented, for us to see how that program is working before we start making changes to make it so that less people would be able to actually access that program. A lot of people received increases to their property taxes, and we want to give help to those long-term homeowners that are just going through it right now. So thank you for putting forward the resolution, and I hope that we can make sure we actually implement the program as it was passed a couple of years ago at this point.
Thank you. And the last public comment from someone from Carmen.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Carmen Silva. I am a resident of the 5th District, been homeowner for 45 plus years. Just calling in support of this resolution presented. And not only in support of that, but to implement it the way it has been it has been placed there, but never implemented. So we need to have this implemented to benefit people like myself, my neighbors, and the less fortunate, like the senior citizens and disabled. It has been a very frustrating time during because of this Tyler nightmare. And even though I feel like I'm not seeing the light yet, I'm still hopeful. And to implement this right now will make a difference in many people. Making changes in it right now without giving it the opportunity to see if it works, it's another nightmare to come. So please, just calling to ask to please support this resolution and not to do any other additions or take anything from it. Thank you so much, Kristen, for everything you have done. And thank you everyone who is in support of the community, the constituents, and the people who voted for you. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from council? Councilwoman Wallauer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that, the reason why this resolution is important is because I have been contacted by so many people who are confused, who are facing bills that they can't afford, who are trying to do the right thing and get in touch with the county and they can't get in touch with the county. I had a senior citizen call me today who has said he has not gotten a bill from the city of Wilmington. I know there are people who have not gotten their bills from the county. I think that we heard some public comment tonight about how people's the property was considered residential. Then in the middle of the stream, it was changed to commercial. Now the person's being charged like another half as much again. There are just so many mistakes. Even the city has put out a presentation to the state government about how properties in many neighborhoods were overvalued, and the city is planning to do something about it. The senior citizens have gotten their reduction. There's people in the 5th District who have contacted me that even after the senior deduction, which used to give them, a really great break on their taxes, because their properties are so overassessed, now they have tax bills, in the hundreds of dollars. So I just think that we owe it to the residents the long-term homeowners who would benefit from this resolution, from this ordinance that was passed by council a couple of years ago, to make this happen for them. And the second thing is I think that it's really important that administrations know that when councils pass laws, that's the law. Like, this is the law of this city that council passed. So the city administration, if they feel like there's any problems with implementing the law, they got to come and talk to council about, what is what are the challenges, why are there challenges, and how can we work together to address them. But certainly just not doing something, I think we need to send a really strong message to the administration that that's not acceptable.
Any other comments from council? Councilman Owens?
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Councilwoman Wilhauer, for bringing this forward. Again, I remember when this was passed, and I believe it was passed unanimously of the members who were in the chamber at the time. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor, and hopefully we can work together to make sure we're considering the impact for our low and moderate income homeowners.
Thank you. Before we close out this conversation, I do want to state, I'm sorry? Councilwoman Darby?
Yes, no, thank you for allowing public comment. I just want to say, one, I want to be added as a co-sponsor. I think Councilmember Wilhauer hit on a lot of points in regards to the impact of this bill and that it's law, administration should implement it. And I just want to add that right now, a lot of our residents are going through a lot with bills increasing. We already know our city isn't affordable. We build high-end apartments and not affordable here, or not enough to keep up. We have our water bills that city council keeps voting to increase every year. Delmarva bill is going up. And now we're going to possibly introduce legislation to raise the eligibility threshold for relief from 50 to 100% property tax increase. I think it's unfair, and I think it's important that we keep families in their homes. We say and give a lot of breaks to corporations. We give them cheap land, free land, allow them to develop whatever they want in our city. But when it comes to residents, we're nitpicking on every dollar for them. Let the 50% be and keep it at that. So I am in support of this resolution. Add me as a co-sponsor. This is relief that our residents need now. And I think that it's unfortunate if that other piece of legislation gets back on the floor and we vote for that to happen. I'm going to be like, most of the times I'm not disappointed in y'all because I expect y'all not to vote the right way. But I'm going to be really disappointed if this happens because it's just like, it's resources are being extracted out of our community, and then you go ahead and do this. It's just crazy. So I hope that we don't support that other ordinance and that we put pressure on the administration to do the right thing and implement what we already passed as law. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Any other public comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? I'll second. Second.
I second myself on my motion.
It's been properly moved in second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, have a good evening.